All right. So now we've got some new characters, or some new challengers have arrived. Up in the upper left-hand corner, we've got Pearl Earring in the nice purple and white trim. We have Overswarm in the upper right-hand corner with the greenish, tealish, I don't even know what color that is. We can make one up. The slate, the nice, bright, it's like reddish orange there for Mang de la Mang. And then a returning champion from Days Have Gone By, Hash Malum, in the bottom right-hand corner. So always nice to see some of our runners that have been gone for a while. They have come back and they are ready and willing to put on a show for us. And they signed up for the event, which really drives home the 5 years of Worlds Collide theme that we've got going, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Worlds Collide, just an amazing community. It's an amazing randomizer, and it helps that 6 is an amazing game.
All right, so people in the chat are going to have to also let me know if the game audio from whomever I've chosen is not good or not clean. I'm going to go with Hashmalum. I think his will be fine, but we'll see. If it's not, then let me know, and I could just throw on background music instead. Trackers, Gretham, Drinks Glue, are you ready for round 2? I hope the silence means yes. He was born ready. Perfect. All right, so let's count this thing off here, and let's hit play. Oh, wow, that was a right-away play. I did not mean for that to happen.
Let's go.
All right, so hopefully we'll be off and running soon between our runners. We already know what our start is from last time around. We've got Gogo, we've got Sortek Strago, and we've got Health Setzer.
What a terrible start.
So we'll see where our runners decide to go here.
I don't even know why I went to Narsh.
Overswarm doing something interesting, not going immediately into Narsh, just going straight into Returners.
Not with this start.
Yeah, so Returners is way faster to loot than Narsh, and it actually has more treasure chests in there for the amount of time that you have to do. There are 9 chests in here, and it takes a lot less of a time to go through because there's only the one item shop until, of course, you get the NPC blocking your way. Thanks there. Appreciate that. And Pearl Earring, though, heading over to Colingen, and they got the Magus Rod. Will they find the Experience Egg?
Nice pathing.
It looks like they're going to find the Experience Egg here. There it is. All 64k of it.
Need more of those, but need money.
And some other good items in there. You'd love to see those Revivifies in your Warp Stones. I believe we start with Warp Stones in this flag set, but other flag sets you don't, and it's a real pain.
Yeah, so we do start with 3 with the Moogle's first tournament flags, which is great because that allows us to do
this already.
Gogo's one zone eater check, essentially. And it allows us to do things like, we were talking last time about warping out of Magitech Factory after getting the first 2 checks, warping out of World of Ruin Narsh after doing Umaro's check, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did I check relics?
Audio check.
Is there anything?
Is your audio good?
I did. Okay.
No, but someone's talking on the stream.
All right. So let's see if we can switch it here. I don't know who's going to be better. I think everybody else was talking during their runs. So maybe we'll have to put on some background music, unfortunately. You guys and girls can let me know in the chat.
You can just stick my run in like a 5 pixel by 5 pixel box in the corner.
There we go.
Because I just recorded audio. Although I think it was when I still had those audio issues, so you'd probably randomly get some horrible screeching.
It's all good. We'll throw on some tunes instead. All right.
Yeah. Personally, I'm a big loot goblin. I would always do Narsh first, but there's so many reasons to go to Narsh that sooner or later you're going to get to do it, Whether it's if you have Mog there or if you're doing, Kefka at Narsh. You're going to go there eventually. I like to do enough looting in the beginning where I can get the Zen Thief Esper Not that it's an Esper this time. But, you know, between Returners and South Figaro, you probably have a lot of money.
Yeah, especially even if you don't know that the experience egg is there, right? It'll be nice to get. It's nice to have items to sell for cash. The problem is every chest you open is a couple of seconds, right? And then if you have to veer off of your normal path to go get it, it becomes even longer and even longer. So you have to make sure that you know when you're good. And that's the hardest part, is figuring out, okay, I don't need this anymore, actually.
Yeah, I'm a huge shopping addict. I think whatever skills I have in this game are definitely brought down by how much I like checking the shops for stuff. And it can definitely cost you time, and sometimes you have to realize when it's just not what's going to advance you through the seed. But I think in general, most people have their specific routing, looting routine in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And probably the best thing you can do is just stick with what works well for you.
Yeah, it always feels, it's like a hit of dopamine, right? To open up a treasure chest and find something really cool in it. As we do see Pearl Earring buying a stack of those ice rods, which will definitely come in handy on some of those early fights. Very cheap ice rods. This was before the advent of the expensive ice rod flag. Either that, or we just decided for Moogles, hey, let's give our Moogles more options to get through the early part of the seed. Because for me, anyway, the two most difficult parts of the Worlds Collide game are the very beginning and then the very end in Kefka's Tower and the final boss.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between being level 3 and being level 6 is, it's just astronomical. Especially if you are trying to push your early game as much as possible and get scaling up a little bit. You know, that first fight, that's when you're going to be your most anxious. And it can feel really rough to feel like I have to stop looting, I have to stop, shopping when you feel like you have nothing for that first fight.
Yeah, Sword Tech 1 will probably get you 150 damage, per turn with Go-Go, so that's 300 damage per turn. So you have to judge whether or not you can take out enemies with that sort of damage, because Setzer has health, right? So he's not going to be doing too much here.
But definitely with this flag set, I'd be doing enough shopping until I found something I can break. Because when you've got those cheap rods, they're going to be somewhere. You hope.
Well, especially with Go-Go, right? So Go-Go makes rods infinitely better with that ability to mimic.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, without rods to mimic, Go-Go is not exactly going to be doing much else.
Yeah, just the Sword Tech 1, which is, maybe 200 damage max on the first fight there. But we do see Hashmalum breaking those rods in order to get past that first fight there. Pearl Earring looks like they're going to be doing their Zone Eater check, so this will be Mog for them at the end of the Zone Eater cave.
Yeah, and that jump from level 3 to level 8, we're already at 170 HP. You're going to survive a lot more. Not everything, but a lot more. And you're probably going to do a lot more damage, too. And if you don't mind my asking, since we're just in the early part of this seed, what are your thoughts when you're starting a seed like this? With this particular flag set and this set of starting characters, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so we want to get our couple of free checks early on, because scaling is going to be based on your number of characters plus espers plus dragons, rather. And that goes for both how strong the enemies are, but also how much XP and GP to a lesser extent, but XP you'll get from a fight. As you do see Overswarm here checking out Fanatic's Tower, and that is our merchant sprite, so that'll be an esper when they go back there, if they go back there. So I'm looking to bump scaling up a little bit so that I can both get some more XP from my very first fight, but also so that I kind of have a direction as to what I'm going to be doing in the seed. If I find an Esper that's got really nice magical spells on it, I know that maybe I'm going to be in for a magic heavy type of seed. If I find some big swords, and if I don't have one of the characters that can use said big swords, now my mind gets into the zone of, hey, I'd like to go do some checks that might yield me some people that can let me use one of these big swords, right? And it'll affect my shopping as well. So I try and do a couple of free checks early. Not too many, obviously, because you don't want to get out of hand. As you do see, Hashmalum breaking those ice rods over Leader's head for that first Esper there, Shiva. And Mog is the reward for Pearl Earring at the end of Zone Eater. So, there's Super Balls for Overswarm. So that's another one of those consumable pieces of offense here that's really nice with a go-go start.
Absolutely. And, if you have a few spare for Final Kefka, you can try to get a swag kill with a Super Ball. But, I think that's we think about expensive Ultima and stuff as things that change when you're no longer doing the Moogle flags. But, it's the Super Balls are what really make the Moogle flags and Moogle flags.
Yeah, because we don't have them at all in shops in some of the more standard flag sets because they're an easy way to crack open a very early seed, and anybody can really use them, and they're sort of random, whereas the rods, you kind of are familiar with them from the vanilla speedrun a little bit. The Super Balls are really just kind of an obscure item that you don't tend to think about at all in the game, so it's one of those interesting things. But so with this particular kind of start, what sort of would you be looking to do, or what would you be looking for when you're going around the world here?
Yeah, so I have, you have your Setzer free check in Collingen. That'd definitely be one of the first things I'd be doing, trying to get an Esper and see what I have available. Do the sort of normal loot routine, go to Zen, see if I can get that an Esper from that. And then depending on what I got from those, if I got 2 Espers and I felt good, I might just try to do something like a little bit of grinding and then do an actual check. If I feel like I've got nothing, then I'll go for Zone Eater. Zone Eater's really not that bad, but I did have one run where I spent, I think it was like 7 minutes trying to cross the bridge. So, which is definitely out of the ordinary. But that traumatized me enough where if I don't have to do it, I won't. But, I believe Collingen here and Sen, neither of them were Espers. So I definitely did Zone Eater early this one and was hoping to find an Esper. Oh, and there's that bridge troll.
Yeah, so sometimes if you buffer a menu, when you jump over onto the bridge and the bridge troll is next to you, they may walk away. But they also may walk towards you, and that's basically what happened for Mang there. Unfortunately, the bridge troll wanted to give us a high five, which is not anything we ever really want to do. Yeah, there we go. Just go ahead and scoot right past him. So in this particular seed, to give you a peek behind the curtain, what I did is I saw we had Go-Go to start. So I went to Moogle Defense after getting Mog to grind on sort of the wolf soldiers. And unfortunately, they didn't give us very much XP. So I then went straight to the boss, who thankfully could be easily dispatched of with a Pearl Rod plus a Mimic. Pearl Rod is usually a good catch-all unless you run into a boss that can absorb it, like, a goddess or something like that. So that's sort of how I approached it, a little more aggressively. I saved my money for the experience egg. I did not buy any of the ice rods like our other runners did. And now I'm kind of regretting my decision, seeing how fast they're getting through things here.
Well, there's the early game, there's the mid game, and the late game. I think I ended this seed with, I know my Setzer had like 7,000 HP, so, just because you don't start with a bunch of ice rods rocketing through the seed, who knows what you're going to have at the end.
Yeah, so that's 11 and 14 for Pearl Earring there, doing a little bit of grinding. I tend to like doing grinding on my way to do something instead of just walking back and forth, so that might be looting South Fig Basement or on my way to do a check. Of course, that is a risk-reward play, because if you're not near a healing bucket or a save point and you get the wrong encounter, then you've just lost all that progress too.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about spending time doing a little bit of extra grinding is, levels are everything in Worlds Collide. If you can get those first couple of extra levels, they're going to pay dividends. You sometimes hear people talking about riding the scaling, where you get ahead and then you just clear everything faster and faster, and you just keep getting more XP. So taking some time to do stuff on the way, find some good grind fights. It's gonna pay off. And if it's a bad fight, you can try somewhere else.
Yeah, Worlds Collide tends to have a snowball effect where if you get a couple of levels underneath you, right, even if it's like 2 fights or maybe even 3, you'll get that much more of a gain out of it towards the end of the seed. I've noticed sometimes when I feel like I'm slogging through the middle of the seed, I'm like, darn, I wish I took one more fight at the very beginning, right? And sometimes you have to recognize it and stop hammer time and do it there. As Hashmalum pulls a Blitz Shadow out of Daryl's tomb, and Overswarm looks like they've got their coral, I think? Or they were in Ebbett's Rock at one point, and they got either blasted back outside or they took a walk outside and are going to go ahead and do a little bit of grinding themselves here, because I believe they're still on level 3 based on the HP of their characters.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to commit to feeding a bunch of coral to a treasure chest and then run into something particularly spicy. Scaling's not too high right now, but anything can feel dangerous when you're level 3.
All right, so Mang de la Mang picking up that Valiant Knife there to Zen Thief. So we do have a couple of users of that Valiant Knife. I believe Setzer is one of them. Mog is another one of them. Pearl Earring here, seeing the good news at the top of Kefka at Narsh that we've got more characters, which means we can go do more checks. Gonna save before going to Lone Wolf, and here is yet another character with Sabin.
Yeah. Now, when you see this, are you thinking, oh boy, I found the 6 characters I need? Or are you thinking, oh god, it's going to be one of these?
Yeah, I'm thinking I found my 6 characters. My problem is when you find characters early, you sort of have to commit and you have to choose which one of these characters am I going to ride or die with. And unfortunately, they haven't really shown you what they need, and the seed hasn't opened up for you yet. We have no espers at this point to know if this is going to be a magic heavy seed or not. We haven't been to a lot of shops to know if we're going to get, big beefy swords or whatever for some of our other users, right? So it's a bit difficult when you get a lot of characters early because you have to commit to these type of decisions.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had those seeds where we had our first 4 characters. They all had stuff about them that was pretty useful. You get that weird sketch lock that seems useless. You ditch them, and then, 5 checks later, you have 2 VKs, an offering, and lock is level 3. And you're like, is it worth trying now?
Yeah. The answer is usually no, but yeah, I hear that. Hashmalum heading up to the floating continent. Overswarm finding Ultros 4 here in Ebbett's Rock. So not really going to have to worry about this boss. Unfortunately, won't get any XP from it, but those ice rods will make very quick work there of Chupon.
Now, we had some fun bosses up here in the sky. So hopefully the scaling's not too bad where those rods are going to put in the work. I believe it was it Air Force and Goddess?
Yes, I think that was what we did see up here. So this will be a test right now of Hashmalum. It looks like he's cruising, right? He's got probably the highest levels of anybody, although Pearl Earring might beg to differ there. Looking through the rage list, did see Aspic, which is a little Bolt 3 action, which is pretty nice to see.
And I mean, even just your regular old 1.5 times. Oh, there's a meteor. Even just a 1.5 times attack thing can be good if you have a VK offering or something.
Yeah,
but
unfortunately, Sabin's item equip pool is so you're right. It depends on what can we use.
And this seed is so interesting. It's we're seeing, Man got that VK way earlier than we saw anybody even thinking about VK strats in the last VOD. Hashmalum's already in Floating Continent. So, it seems like the curse of too many characters is probably still going to hit everybody, but I think things are going to play out pretty differently.
All right, so we do have Leader in the Sky for Overswarm. They're going to get Esper number 2 here. So maybe Mang, now with that Valiant Knife, is going to favor some of these monster-in-a-box checks like Daryl's Tomb, like Floating Continent, like Velt Cave that we do have access to. When they eventually get their Sabin, that's even more checks that have monsters in a box. So I don't think we did see the offering anywhere last time. So
that Katana Soul?
Yeah. So it might have been in Ancient Castle, right? Because I think that was the only ones that we didn't see.
Yeah, Ancient Castle, I don't think anyone did. There's the one in Phantom Train.
Yeah.
And probably no one is doing it. I think it was like a Genji helmet in Phantom Train, so probably no one's going to check that monster in a box.
Alright, so Mang is going to get their Shadow after this relatively easy fight. Pearl Earring will be at 6 characters already. So when I get to 6 characters, I tend to try and go, well, now I'm pivoting more towards Esper item checks. So we do have a bunch on the board for that. We do have Cyan's Dream, which the 1st and 3rd spot are Esper item ones. And then we have a lot of peekable checks that Sabin has as well.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember if Pearl was one of the people who found Super Balls, but I would definitely be thinking about Mount Zozo.
Yes.
It doesn't quite fall under what you just said, but that dragon, if you can get that killed, is going to make everything that follows easier. And if you need to do some looting, there's some convenient chests there.
Alright, so here comes the oh my goddess fight for Hashmalum. Got past Air Force pretty easily, but this is a different story, although we still do have Ice Rods, and I think it was Overswarm that bought the Super Balls. We did see them being used pretty heavily, although the first couple of bosses that he's fought have been pretty easy pushovers with Narapa and Leader.
Mm-hmm.
And Ultras 4 too, right?
Yeah.
Which is not something you really want to use the Super Balls on, because multi-targeted bosses are not fun with a random targetable offense like that.
Yeah, Overswarm's done a few interesting things. We got those Super Balls from I think it was World of Ruin Figaro, which I didn't really see anyone else check. So sometimes just doing something a little bit weird can give you a nice little advantage. And it's not a huge commitment doing South Figaro, World of Ruin, and World of Balance, and looting both of those.
Alright, so Hashmalum getting through their goddess fight, so we'll pick up their Esper on the ground here. Pearl Earring heading into Moogle defense, which we didn't see anybody do in the last VOD, so this will be fun for us to see a brand new check here. And this is, again, one of those peekable checks where if you see the Moogle running away from the Narsh guards, you know that this is an Esper or an item. And since Pearl Earring needs Espers, we're doing this check. Good heads-up play here from Mang, knowing that Narapa has Reflect on. So we can't actually cast a spell on Narapa, but we can use an Esper Summon, which is an AoE attack. So going to do that, plus a couple of Mimics, and we'll be out of here with Shadow with Blitz. And it looks like it's number 128 for Pearl Earring. And this is another one of those bosses where they're going to learn pretty quickly that this Ice Rod is not the answer.
When all you have is an Ice Rod, everything's going to look like an Ice Rod hole.
Yes. It's a bit unfortunate. We had, these early bosses that could absorb ice, right? We had Dullahan in the Burning House, and now we have number 128 here. I think we also had SR Behemoth relatively early, too. Mm-hmm. Another ice-absorbing boss. And it looks like Mang is going to try and figure out who to put that Valiant Knife on. Looks like they're going to keep it on Mog. I really have to normalize the volume between all these songs I have. One will come up and I'll be like, wow, that is very loud. Alright, Velt Cave it is for Mang de la Mang. So they're going to get whatever the reward is at the end here. Again, not a surprise going after the checks with Monster in a Box when you have early access to that Valiant Knife. Overswarm is deciding, I need to use these Super Balls. I need to get value out of them. So let's go do a dragon before the Super Balls are no longer useful. And for me, I feel like the Super Balls become not as useful when your characters are around level like 16 to 20. They seem like you could do more damage than the Super Balls can.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be a little handy to have in Kefka's Tower in like a side party, but you're most likely not going to get the same kind of value you're going to get out of, checking them this early on that dragon.
All right, so that was a Bismarck Esper there for Pearl Earring at the end of Moogle Defense. We get to say hi to all the Moogles here. Ifrit and Shiva went away rather fast for Hashmalum, courtesy of that Ice 3 spell. And that is their Valiant Knife there. And they will find that Shadow and Setzer can both use it. Oh, and so can Gogo too. Wow. Okay. A lot of potential with that VK. Unfortunately, the Super Balls didn't really do much damage there. And that's what I said about, after a while, right? We're doing almost 2,000 with Aura Bolt, which is a pretty early... You get that at level 6, right? That spell. So you got to use those Super Balls very early on in the seed and then forget about them. Question from Drink School in the chat. Who would I put the Valiant Knife on? So I think Mog has like 42 base magic power, as there we see Overswarm with the Offering, but not the Valiant Knife. He's got half of the piece of the pie. And double Gigantos for Hashmalum. We'll see if he decides to stick around for this or if he has to run away from it. So Mog has 42 magic power, so I would keep him on casting, especially with access to Ice 3. I don't know what Shadow's magic power is, but if I knew where that experience egg was, I would be going after Bum Rush as a build for him with Blitz. So I would put that on Setzer, given that, I have answers for both Mog and Shadow as to what they would do with the rest of the seed. What about you?
Yeah, I know that I put it on Setzer in mine. I don't know how quickly I found Shadow, but generally if I can, if I have someone who has a good magic stat, I know that they're going to be useful till the end. Unless for some reason I don't manage to get a single good magic thing, but that's rarer than normal. So I would probably put it on someone who can, one, use it, because only Locke, I believe, can use it in vanilla, and two, isn't really going to be doing anything better, and doesn't have some kind of weirdly low like speed stat or something. I'm not opposed to putting VK on Strago if I have to, but so I would probably put it on Setzer. I tend to assume that Shadow has more magic power anyway. So even not seeing that we've got magic and Blitz, you might as well make someone who's not going to be doing much else do some good.
All right, so Pearl Earring grabbing another Esper at the bottom of Barren Falls. Mang done with Velt Cave with the Esper for them. Hash is finishing up the Floating Continent. Overswarm will get their Esper here from the Velt Cave. I think in my seed, I didn't get the Valiant Knife until a little bit later, after I had already decided what my party was doing. So I was just like, all right, Mog, I guess you're magic casting and Valiant Knifing? Because I only had one, and then I got a second one and a Genji Glove from some dead checks and some dragons, so I was like, all right, game, I guess I will do this. Sometimes the game gives you stuff and you have to just accept it.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's done weird fixed dice offering stuff on random characters to try to get through some weird wing of, KT.
And we got
There's always... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we got our dabbing Yeti over here for Hash, so get your dabbing Yeti emotes if you got them.
But yeah, I think one of the best things you can learn is how to make use of whatever the seed sticks you with. Because sometimes you can loot every single chest, do every single check, and the game will not provide. There's probably a Moogle Cup seed out there that's more punishing than the Coliseum Grand Finale flags that we're running this week. You just never know. So sometimes you shouldn't look a gift Strago in the mouth, chat.
Alright, so here's our SR Behemoth fight. So I did lie. It was quite a ways down the line for us. But Pearl Earring, I think, leaning into the fact that he's already got 6 characters, wants to go find his Espers, so this totally makes sense. Hash, by the way, still has 4 characters at 30 minutes into the seed, which, given what we saw in the previous VOD, is wild to me, considering that people had Kefka Tower skip with 9 characters at this point.
Yeah, it must just be, if you do Floating Continent early, things look normal. If you don't do Floating Continent, the seed gets real weird. But I don't think were there any other character options besides that Mog? Because I know Shadow didn't give us any other characters.
And Setzer did not either. So we're going to see sort of the last location Kefka, last location either Zone Eater or Kefka at Narsh. So you could definitely do this seed without going to Zone Eater. It just means that you have to go get Cyan at Kefka at Narsh.
That's right. You don't need Mog for Kefka at Narsh.
Right, and then you get Edgar and you're at 6. So I know that there were a couple of runners in the spoiler chat that said, "Wow, my seed was not the same as the rest." So we'll see if that's the case for Hash Malum here. As Mang is heading up to the Floating Continent, so they'll be done with this with yet another Valiant Knife and 2 more Espers. We're still digging in Monster in a Boxes, and this one in the classroom, I didn't remember what it was, but it's not not the droid we're looking for, as they say in some other universes.
I'm sure there's a Star Wars randomizer community that says that all the time.
Well, I think there's a couple of references to Star Wars in this game, is there not? Isn't Biggs and Wedge sort of a Star Wars reference from some of the pilots from the first Star Wars movie?
I mean, this whole game could probably be considered a bit of a reference. You got an evil empire, but I mean, who doesn't have an evil empire?
Yeah.
It's a Super Nintendo RPG. If you ask who came up with the evil empire first, it's a bit of a snake eating its own head kind of thing.
All right, so here's Esper number 5 for Hash, provided he gets through this fight here at the Velt Cave. And Overswarm is going to find their conga line of characters at the top of Norsh. I didn't even realize these fights on the way into Floating Continent were also pretty beefy, given a lot of XP. These are Kefka Tower, or this right here is a Kefka Tower mob, so if you go to the Floating Continent, you're getting a lot of levels between this and the Gigantos fight. And the 2 bosses on the way in, not to mention either.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one reason why, people will often say they'd rather do Floating Continent 20 minutes in versus 45 minutes in. Because if you're going to be getting all those levels, you want to get them as early as possible in the seed so you can take advantage of them for the longest.
Yeah, I've definitely struggled with the when do you go do Floating Continent. There was one seed in particular for Ultras League Season 7 where I went Floating Continent relatively early. Nobody else that ran the Mega Elixir seed did, and I lost by like 15 minutes. And when I had somebody do a VOD review of it, they were like, well, the reason why is because you went to Floating Continent. You do long checks, you're going to get longer times. So sometimes that's how it be. Sometimes the levels that you get from doing these longer checks don't actually make up for it in the end. And that's one of the difficult things about Worlds Collide.
Yeah. But then sometimes you get that seed where you get the 2 espers you need, you get Siren, Golem, and then that 6th character you need, all on Floating Continent. And people who faded it are the ones who end up being screwed, you know.
Yep.
In
It's
general,
the wrong decision whenever you don't make it, right?
yeah,
Or
it's
whenever you
it's
do
the
make
classic
it, whatever it is, yeah.
Schrodinger's chest with Illumina in it. You know, every chest has Illumina in it until you check it.
The Murphy's Law of Worlds Collide, if you will. All right, so Pearl Earring is going to insert that throw Edgar into the party there. So a bit of a different endgame party composition we'll see out of them than out of our other runners who are nowhere even close to Cyan's Dream at the moment. In fact, only one other runner has Cyan at the moment.
Well, everyone's going to do the conga line eventually, because the only way to get another character is either at Kefka at Narsh or getting that Mog, which leads you up the mountain anyway.
Alright, so here's the Goddess fight for Meng. Using that Sword Tech 1. So Sword Tech 1 will ignore defense. So that's really nice if you have nothing else for a Magi Master or maybe a Tritalk. You can always get by with Sword Tech 1. It's going to take a while, but it'll actually do the trick for you.
And down goes Goddess.
Yeah, so those rods, in addition to the fact that you break them for a tier 2 version of whatever spell it is a maximum damage defense ignoring version of that spell. And it does also ignore Reflect, which is really, really nice. So Goddess has super duper high magic defense, so that's why it's really nice to use against Goddess.
Yeah, there's a reason outside of Moogle flag sets the rods are like 12,000 or something. Instead of like the 2,000.
And an Overswarm here running into the ninjas and the Narsh Guard. Hashmalum doing some dances with the flames here in the burning house.
Yeah, typically anything that looks like a ninja or a samurai or anything like that is going to be a bit of a pain. But luckily we have a full party on that martial fight, so we should get through it just fine. I think it's the ones that do trade-off. I can't remember if it's those.
Yeah, those are the retainers, which is actually a great rage as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so half of the fights inside of the burning house are dangerous, and then the other half are these blue blobules that don't really do much and give you nothing as a result. So a bit of a min-max there, as we do get Cyan for Overswarm. So they are now at 7 characters. So we'll see if this affects their routing now that they have gotten their character requirements. And it looks like we're going to talk to Arvis here and head into Moogle Defense. And with the Mog showing up, he will be pretty happy about that.
You know, people poo-poo Strago's checks, but in kind of a weird way, I find Mog's checks to be the most annoying.
Yeah, this Moogle Defense is definitely on the lengthy side for the cutscene that you have to intro it, the cutscene that you have to outro it, and the fact that you need a warp stone to warp out of here, or you're doing a very long walk. It's one of the longer checks deceptively in the game. The great thing is you can peek it, and as I mentioned, when I did this seed, I fought sort of the little wolves that came at you for grind fights to get some levels. They unfortunately weren't very good in this seed, but that's something you definitely can do. However, if you can't beat the boss, you've just wasted all that time, right? So it's a very risky play.
Yeah. And you kind of want to check it as soon as you finish Kefka and Narsh because you get teleported into this room. But then if it's not something good, you can't reset out of it. And it's inconvenient to save beforehand. But I do like getting Mog because it forces you to check Kefka at Narsh. Because you really hate to run into a Kefka at Narsh gated seed where you're just refusing to check up the mountain.
Alright, so Pearl Earring into the rest of Sabin checks now. I believe they did Barren Falls a little bit earlier, now doing Collapsing House. did see an NPC outside here, so I believe this was an Esper. Second Valiant Knife on the way for Mang. Mm-hmm.
And no Valiant Knives on Pearl Earrings, so not checking these Monster in a Boxes. Although we know there's nothing particularly useful in them. I think the best Monster in a Box we saw was a Gigantos one somewhere.
Yeah, if you didn't go to Floating Continent for the double Gigantos fight, there was a single Gigantos around somewhere. So yeah, Hashmalam very quickly running into the dead end of Kefka at Narsh here for him, or Zone Eater. Because he's in Ebbett's Rock, and I don't remember if he peaked. No, Overswarm was the one that peaked Fanatic's Tower, showing us it was an NPC at the bottom. So he's just got this, Fanatics, and Zone Eater Kefka at Narsh left, and we know that we do have a character at both of those other spots, so we'll see which one he chooses. And here's the double Gigantos fight on the Floating Continent, as the rich get richer, they say, for XP. I think when I was done with this, I was like almost level 40, and I was like, okay, this is the right decision.
Yeah, the only thing that's unfortunate about this is, you can't do this fight again. It's not grindable like the, Burning House. Not that you need more than one double Gigantos fight.
Yeah, let's see this. 38,000 XP there.
I did have a double Gigantos.
Something like that? Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I did have a double Gigantos Burning House once. That was something.
Yeah, the problem is if you have too many of those fights, you do have to survive the opening onslaught of 6 throat jabs, which if your team doesn't have great armor, it's kind of a problem. Usually armor is not a big deal in Worlds Collide, but with physical attacks like that, it definitely is.
Yeah, armor can be a bit underrated. Armor tends to be one of those things that we get and then we sell, because we'll sell for a lot. But things can really hurt if you don't have, something.
The best defense is a good offense. If it can't touch you, it can't kill you.
Yeah, we're gonna see some stuff that's gonna try its hardest to kill you, no matter how good your offense is, in this flashback tourney.
Alright, so both with 7 characters, 5 Espers, Overswarm and Pearl Earring on the top half of the screen. Deciding to go over to Mount Zozo. We'll see if they do the dragon, but they are going to get an Esper at the end of this here. And Hashmalam at 7 Espers and 4 characters finally decides to pull the trigger on Zone Eater, which will lead to Mog, which will then lead to more characters, which will then lead to even more characters. So he's going to finally get his seed opening up after closing in on itself very tightly here.
Yeah, seeing those numbers, it feels like Hashmalam's playing an entirely different seed compared to what was it, Boo at like 7-0 or something.
Yeah, there were a couple of people in the chat that did not get an Esper before they got either 8 or 9 characters, and I could see how that could be possible. Alright, so Ice Dragon here. Thankfully, we only have 2 of 4 frozen for Pearl Earring.
Yeah, not enough to open the nerf freeze discourse.
Freeze is very annoying. It is very, very annoying. Thankfully, there are a lot of different fire spells and fire abilities that you could use on your own party. But it still is... It is very annoying.
Well, it's just another reason to maybe not sell every single force armor you find.
Yeah, it's a very inaccurate spell. It will it's less accurate than stop and those kind of spells. And even if it hits, then it re-rolls and it says, okay, how many of these targets that I actually didn't miss am I going to miss? And the answer is like 0 through A or whatever the number was. So it kind of has 2 chances to miss you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just surprised. Hashmalam actually fell to the first bridge guard, which something about the hitboxes. It seems like the first one can't possibly hit you, and then the second one can't possibly not hit you. So I honestly, if you told me that the first one couldn't knock you off the bridge, I would have believed you.
Yeah, that's only happened to me a very small number of times. That first bridge guard, he needs to be, smacking you in the back of the head right next to you. And even then.
I mean, with how weird the programming in this game can be, I'm not surprised that one of them just functions differently.
Yeah, this is also one of those rooms here, this falling room. If you are actually moving when the ceiling falls, it'll count where you were instead of where you are standing. So sometimes you can get squashed even though it looks like there's no possible way the ceiling hit you. It's very weird.
And I believe that the timing can be a little bit tighter if the chests you open have longer text.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it
correct.
usually comes up if you're able to avoid the last slam, wasting time.
Yeah, that's definitely correct. If you get a very long named item, looking at you, Marvel Shoes, or Sleeping Bag, or one of those really long ones, it actually takes the text longer to write on the screen. And the ceiling is not on the same timer that the text boxes are. It's a global timer versus, the text boxes. They sort of stop what you and your character are kind of doing, which is kind of weird. I can understand why people don't like Zone Eater. It's got very strange mechanics. It feels very random. And most of the game, right, aside from maybe the soldier skip at Kefka and Narsh, is not movement based at all. This is just straight up game knowledge. It's not mechanical skill. It's really game knowledge skill. And that seems like the only mechanical skill that's involved in this entire game. Alright, so Hash Malum here triggering Lone Wolf. We'll get 2 more characters out of this. After being at 4 characters for about 40 minutes of the seed, we'll now have 7 and go, hey, what the heck happened here?
Now, there's one skill-based thing you're forgetting, and that's getting up the Fanatics Tower as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's just a thumb circle workout. People that are fighting game connoisseurs like Mang de la Mang will be good at Fanatics Tower. Although not choosing to go there. Sorry, go ahead.
People who are good at that one Mario Party game that destroyed controllers and palms.
Oh yeah, I would have Blister right in the middle of the palm there. Alright, so Pearl Earring very quietly just going about their business. This will be Esper number 7 for them. So they got to 7 characters and they decided, hey, I'm going to go for, or 6 characters rather, and decided I'm going to go for checks that are mostly Esper item only. And aside from that Edgar we found in Dream, we've rattled off 7 Espers in a row, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so Mang is in Narsh, looking to get some more camping supplies, which is always nice.
Is Pro going to get that XP egg? We're sitting outside Colin Gym.
That would probably make sense, although at 45 minutes into the seed, it's a bit late to go get an experience egg, I think, but hey, if you've got nothing else to spend your money on, then why not?
Yeah. I mean, we've only killed 1 dragon. Our characters are still in, like, the 20s. You could suddenly be at KT Unlock and be in your 20s or early 30s.
Yeah, and that always feels bad, because then you're like, well, what do I do? Do I go chase down a skip? Do I just go fight a bunch of dragons? Do I clear the entire middle lane out so I get 3 bosses plus 1 dragon with my full team? What do I sort of do here? And looks like our bottom runners are finally discovering the top of Narsh gold mine. So they will be at 7 characters before long. I don't know if Overswarm realizes that there is not an Esper here at Tizen. Oh no, they're buying earrings. Yeah, very magic heavy seed here, so good to stock up on your earrings.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things you can learn when you're first learning World Collide is how many ways can you make your magic stat as high as possible. because that's what's going to carry you through so much of the game, especially the early game. I mean, even by the end of the game, you probably want to throw a couple earrings on somebody.
Yeah, most of the attacks in Final Fantasy VI are magical based, right? There are most of the tools, there are most of the sword techs, there is the fight command, there's the jump command, there's some of the rages, but everything else is a magic attack. So anything you can do to boost that magical attack output will help out. Yeah,
that beefcake Sabin was working out the wrong muscles for the blitz command.
They had to balance it somehow. Imagine if Sabin had a high magic stat, then he would be a ridiculous character.
And Mangala and Mang didn't make the skip on to Kefka Narsh, so I think we're gonna see a bunch of annoying encounters in a row.
Yeah, if you miss it once, you have to fight probably 3, sometimes even 5 encounters based on whether or not you can get away or not. Pearl Earring here doing Mount Cults, which is another one of the Sabin checks.
Not exactly a maligned check, but I find a lot of people, myself included, don't think too highly of it. I think we're just used to the vanilla game where it felt like such a slog getting here, but it's really not that bad without random encounters.
Yeah, it is the worst of Sabin's checks, which says something more about Sabin's checks than Mount Cult itself.
Yeah, I mean, how can you complain about Sabin checks when you have, Strago in the game?
All right, Hash doing a little bit of a dance. Do I go here? Do I go there? And it looks like they're going to choose Doma Siege, and our runner that had 4 characters for the longest time is now going to have it's not the first one to 8 because Overswarm just barely beat him there, but is essentially the first one to 8. Isn't that funny how this game works out sometimes?
And sorry, Glue, looks like we're not putting Umaro in the party.
See, Hash didn't even want Umaro at all. He went to go walk the other way, and it's like one of those "but thou must" moments.
Maybe we don't need to defend Doma Castle.
There's a Sasquatch here. Why do you need me?
Right, we're trying to get the Sasquatch out of there.
Is the Sasquatch the one causing all the problems? Is he the one who poisoned the water supply?
Sorry, I think you were about to say something useful.
Did he poison the beef jerky? Or did we steal his beef jerky, rather? So yeah, Pearl Earring now at 8 Espers, just needs 1 more for go. Overswarm and Hash at 8 and 7, so we'll see if they get another character. They're out there, based on the trackers of some of our other runners.
Now, did Celeste come from Figaro Castle?
Celeste was from Imperial Camp, so if our runners decide to just do a hop, skip, and a jump over to the camp, then they'll get Celeste.
It's weird to see, 51 minutes in you have Sabin and you haven't done Imperial Camp. Just because so often with like a Sabin start, that's one of the first checks that gets done.
Yeah.
But, I guess it can be a little bit slower this late.
Yeah, I'd rather fight a boss and be done than have to fight 4 battles and watch, a couple of cutscenes here. But this is a peekable check, so we'll see if Overswarm decides to go through with it. They do not need Celeste, however, getting Celeste will mean that they have access to the Kefka Tower skip. And we did see in the last race how powerful the Kefka Tower skip was.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Pearl Earring getting their Umaro from their Doma Siege, and it looks like Mang de la Mang heading into Doma Dream here, trying to go 3 for 3 for Espers. We know that that's not going to happen based on other runners, but he will be at 8 and 8 when this is done.
And we've got another runner discovering how many things in this game absorb ice.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Basically every undead thing, except for Rexel, for some reason.
Rexel is one of the weirdest sprites in the entire game. Dullahan is worse because Dullahan is not undead. It's floating. It's not weak to... it doesn't absorb fire. It's weak to it. Right? It's just a very strange sprite.
It opens with Pearl, but then you don't... It's not weak to Pearl, but it doesn't absorb Pearl.
Yeah.
It's strange.
Yeah. Alright, so Pearl Earring, speaking of Pearl, is going to find out this Genji shield, I think, was here.
Genji helmet?
Genji
I was
shield.
wrong.
Alright, I win imaginary internet points.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
And we have simultaneous SR behemoths dispatched of. SR could stand for Senior Behemoth, Senior Behemoth, Sriracha Behemoth, Scrontium Behemoth. It's probably Super Behemoth, but, we like to have a little fun here at Worlds Collide.
It's actually, R is a middle name. It's like SR Behemoth. So like Steve Richard Behemoth.
Seymour Robert Behemoth the First.
Right. I was trying to think of things that were different between this flag set and the current Moogle Cup flag set that we use. And I realized the big one, it's the dead checks, We're seeing things like Genji helmets, Genji shields, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Modern day Moogle Cup runners are spoiled.
Yeah, so that's the customizable item rewards that came along a little bit later. Also, there is a check skip for Moogle Cup, whereas there is no check skip for the Moogle's first tournament. You only get a skip at 9 characters or 12 espers versus the 22 checks as a possible option as well.
Yeah, get your back in my days in the chat, folks.
Yep. Back in my day, the airship always was at Narsh when you switch worlds. which was cool because it played a bit into your routing, right? But also it was terrible because you always started at Narsh.
Speaking of airships and things being in weird places, aren't you involved with some weird stuff with some of the map shuffle things?
I have played a few map shuffle seeds. The Siegfried Shuffle weekly async is something that Drinks Glue is putting on, where we're going through a bunch of flag sets here to do basically a map shuffler. And Hashmalum has forgotten how to do this puzzle. Oh my goodness. It's one of those things where you get so used to it, you fall into a rhythm, and if you don't have the right rhythm, as soon as you fall out of rhythm, you're like, oh my god, what am I doing? How do I do this?
Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I accidentally did this a little bit wrong. I think I would just black out. I would just go into a fugue state because it's such muscle memory that as soon as you accidentally, you're thinking about something else, you do it slightly different. I just would not know what's going on.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Alright, so Pearl Earring, speaking of getting them, did pick up their Kefka Tower skip with Shadow at Daryl's Tomb. Overswarm picking up their 8th Esper there. So yeah, the map shuffle stuff is really, really interesting. If you join our Discord, you can see, you can only roll seeds through Seedbot at the moment. It's not on the website, but it will also make you play the game radically different than what you're used to, because at least in the mode that is the Siegfried Shuffle, it's just the entrances to the overworld towns. So if you try and go into, let's say, the Velt Cave, like Pearl Earring just did, if you go into that entrance, you might find yourself in Fanatic's Tower, right? So it really forces you to kind of know all the ins and outs of all the little towns on the map and say, can I loot in here? Are there shops in here? And it will sometimes make you do things that you wouldn't ever normally do, right? I played a seed the other day where I went into Miranda, which is something I never do, and there was an experience egg in the crate there. So that's just wild to me that that can happen. And now it'll make me check the Miranda stand all the time. No.
You know, one of the things I love about Worlds Collide is if you're the kind of person who wants to do the like normal, quote unquote normal competitive flag set, which would usually be the Ultras League flag set. There's tons of people running it. There's weekly events. Then there's the Ultras League seasons that come every couple of months. If you like doing the weirdo stuff, there's also plenty of people who want to join you in that too. So, you know, we've got the various like draft asyncs every week, the chaos tournament of the month. Just people wanting to do weird stuff, you know, and now we've got map shuffling coming on too, you know, whatever flavor you want, you will not be alone.
So you're saying we're weird.
Well, I think any randomizer community is weird, but there's enough of us interested in enough weird things that you will be able to race someone with your same flavor of weird.
That's very well put.
Yeah, maps I need to do some stuff with. I want to check out Dungeon Crawl as well. Pearl Earring and Hash, it looks like both have PT Unlock and Skip.
Yeah, right around the same time. So we'll see. They gotta book it into the tower because Overswarm and Mang are hot on their heels. Overswarm will get their go mode here at Tritalk Cliff, and Mang just picked up Kefka Tower Skip with that Umaro pickup there. Yeah, Dungeon Crawl, I watched, or I tried tracking anyway, a Dungeon Crawl sort of showcase, and it made my head hurt. So I don't know when I'm going to try and do that, but it definitely looks something interesting.
Yeah, in my head, I just assume it's like the Earthbound Ancient Cave run, but honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah, so all of the towns are either vanilla or randomized, depending upon what other options you add to it. But all of the quote-unquote dungeons in the game, so things like Daryl's Tomb or Ancient Castle, they're all connected in one big gigantic room, right? So you could warp out of the dungeon and go back to the overworld map at any time, but the only way to do checks is to go into the dungeon, find the rooms with the bosses, fight the bosses, and get the rewards. So it's pretty wild. It's almost like a roguelike game, which I've never really dabbled a lot in, and again, it makes my head hurt. So maybe not for me, but certainly if you're interested in that sort of thing, that's why our Discord is there.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, Hashmalom just bought 20 ice rods.
Listen, if we have nothing else to spend our money on, we can't take it with us past the end of Kefka, right? Let's get it. Pick up that Mega Elixir that we know we need for Fallen 1. Let's get some ice rods, because remember, Kefka has a chance to cast Train on our party, which means that we can't cast spells. And in a very magic-heavy seed thus far, if we need to bust out ice rods instead of use echo screens, then that's what we got to do.
Ash also picked up a couple of softs, which people don't talk about softs a lot, but you really feel it when you don't have them. Especially with a couple parts in Final Kefka can petrify you. And there's not a lot of ways out of it.
I wonder what a pickled soft would taste like.
Probably like dill.
We should come up with a Worlds Collide cookbook. We'll spearhead one of those. We'll make it happen. My wife always yells at me when I cook. She'll ask me, "How long until this is how long should I put the timer on for?" I'm like, "Well, they'll be done when they're done," and that's a very frustrating answer for someone that that doesn't cook like that.
Yeah, I don't think, I like cooking. I'm decent enough at it. I don't think I could ever possibly estimate how long something's going to take to cook.
Is the pizza ready? I don't know. Is the cheese melted? Let's start there.
It will be ready by the next business day. I can guarantee you that.
All right, so it does look like Hashmalum is our first one into KT at the switches there. So a lot of our other runners... Oh, I'm sorry. No, Overswarm. I blinked and I missed it. They must have been doing some menuing there, and I missed it. So both Hashmalum and Overswarm into Kefka's Tower here. Mang picking up a couple of Mega Elixir's on the way, and it looks like they're going to go grab Bum Rush. So that's going to be about a minute and change until they get into the tower. And Pearl Earring also stepping on in as well. So we'll see which one of our runners get past some of these ugly side statues that we've seen.
Yeah, Chatternook, at the very least, doesn't absorb ice.
Yep. All right, and Hash here, gonna go take the middle lane first, which was the easiest of the lanes here with Dataluma at this first spot.
Yeah. There's something to be said about that, we're used to going middle lane first in Kefka's tower, but I always like when I do skip taking my worst party through first in case I really need to back out and start over. You don't want a full clear middle with your beast mode team and then get to Magimaster on the side with your weird go-go Strago Cyan party.
Yeah, so Andrew Racho is coming up with some nice recipes in chat. You could also feel free to come up with your own in the chat, or if we're on YouTube in the comments section. We got Moogle stew, Gestalt flatbread, Yeti spaghetti, and Poltergeist hot spicy chicken sandwich. Those are some good ones. I think we can start with, and pickled softs, obviously. All right, so we have 2 Chatternook fights. And Sword Tech 7 doing some work with Strago for Pearl Earring.
Folks, don't...
Gotta keep pointing it out, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Seeing 2 people dead and just Strago alive on that Chatternook fight, as we get through that on Overswarm's side.
Oh boy, that was a close one.
Chatternook's actually less annoying in Worlds Collide than Vanilla.
Yeah, so we did dial back the amount of time he spends in lady form and spends more time in demon form. However, that's only for the first 2 turns. If you can't take care of Chatternook fast enough, you'll feel the wrath of the non-vanilla Chatternook in like the turns after the first 2. Or if you join one of the asyncs that you sort of mentioned earlier, I don't think it's on for this week, but in a previous week I turned off the more demon flag for Chatternook, and people were not happy that I did that.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those auto berserk things where the only person who likes it is the person who activated it.
Yeah, the real challenge is the Rexol one. That one is very difficult to deal with, especially in Kefka's tower.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of difficult to deal with,
we got 4 people fighting that Doom.
Oof. But yeah, Mang de la Mang took a minute to go get that Bum Rush, but we're going to see the benefits of it now. The quad 9s here, and with that Go-Go, we'll also be able to use Bum Rush as well.
Yeah, and if you can't tell, Bum Rush scales off of magic, obviously. Which makes it very easy to power up with pretty minimal investment.
When in doubt, it's a magic attack. Toilet Atmos prison wine. That is a really good one.
Ooh,
Oh,
not
boy.
a good freeze.
Yeah, that is. Ooh, do we take a reset here, or do we put faith in Yeti? I know what Glue's answer would be. We'll see what happens here. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, it's only going to take 90 seconds for the freeze to go away.
Yeah, it's like an eternity, though.
Yeah.
That'll allow Pearl Earring and Mang de la Mang to catch up here as we're in phase 2 for his Doom fight. And Overswarm here is getting through his snails.
Yeah, can we make it through the snail?
Put a little garlic, olive oil on that snail, boil it, and we're good to go. There's another recipe for our cookbook. Alright, looking through that rage list there. SR Behemoth is nice for Fire 3 here, until we get into the second phase of this fight, of course.
Yeah, gotta love the Behemoth rages. Oh, and Strago's finally free.
Hey, there we go. Queued up Sword Tech 6 with Stunner. And unfortunately, during the second phase of Doom, he gets the image status, which is why Umaro is whiffing on all of these hits. But thankfully, we have thawed out enough of our party to go ahead and do some decent damage here. A bit unfortunate for the other racers, can't really take advantage of the fact that we got the unlucky end cross out of Hashmalum. Pearl Earring does get past this fight. And what just happened there? I think Mang tried to heal themselves by casting Bolt 3, but did not have the Thunder Shield on Mog. Oh boy. You hate to see it happen.
Yeah, a bit of an own goal right at the end. Well, I say right at the end. Plenty can happen in Final Kefka. But this is not where you're going to be feeling great about something like that.
Yeah, at the beginning of the seed, the minutes don't feel like minutes, and here the seconds feel like minutes, as I like to say.
Yeah. And it's not a super beefy party that Mang's got fighting this Doom.
Yeah, so I think his best bet is that SR Behemoth Rage, or maybe even the that Great Behemoth. A couple of Behemoth Rages. Because the SR Behemoth will do the Fire 3, which is the weakness of Doom in the first part of the phase. But in the second half of that fight, he gets that Reflect status as well as the Image status. So that Fire 3 will come right back at us. And Overswarm is going to have to resort to Flare here. Yick. That's even slower.
Yeah, I mean, you could always get around that Reflect status with Ice Rods. Oh, wait. Doom absorbs ice.
Well, we did loot a Pearl Rod at the very beginning of this game. I don't know who ended up using it so far.
It's hard to imagine it going unused for long when you have a go-go around.
Alright, so Mang going up for round 2. Electric Boogaloo here against... Oh, there we go. This will take care of this, no problem. This Merton with that Thunder Shield now on Mog. Much better. And Pearl Earring has got just the center lane, I think, to clear, which is 2 bosses, but they're 2 fairly easy bosses, as opposed to all of the rest of our runners have 1 boss, but they are the more difficult of the side statue bosses here.
Yeah, worst you're going to get from Dataluma is that, that healing, time wasting. No Northern Cross shenanigans. No one's aura is going to be shaking.
Nobody's going to be charmed. in the Chatternook case. Yeah, it's like, come on, Dataluma. I know you want to heal yourself up, but 550 HP is nothing. This next hit is going to do over 3k to you. Just delaying the inevitable. You're wasting my time.
And Mang finally getting it through without Bolt 3ing himself.
Love to see it. Alright, and Hashmalum also employing the Merton strats against Chad. So 1 more should do it for him there. And they will be ready. And it looks like Pearl Earring just has to fight the Welk at the top here. Again, Umaro coming up empty on this Doom fight. Uh-oh. Flare is not going to work very well here for Overswarm. He's got to be careful. Okay, he must have taken away the Reflect status there. Either that or Flare can't be reflected. I don't remember. I thought it could. Now I'm going to have to go look this up.
I assume it can't be reflected, because if it could be reflected, I probably would have learned by now on accident.
Nope, it
can be wrong.
It can be reflected. So one thing you can do is if you have Dispel, as in Dispel, not this word spell.
Not dispel.
You can actually take the reflect and image status away from Doom.
And we've got Hash Malum, the owner of 20 ice rods. It looks like it's going to be our first into the final Kefka fight.
Yeah, reflect does wear off after a while, but usually it does take a little bit. So he must have been going at that fight for a while. Yep, first one of our runners up to final Kefka here is going to be Hash Malum. As we've got Mang finishing off their middle row. Pearl Earring done with all of their bosses, so we'll be stepping up to the plate momentarily. And now it's a mad dash for the switches. Alright, so tier 1 here for Hash Malum.
We've got the get off my lawn part of Kefka with that clenched fist.
Yeah, so we do have Fire 3, so we will be able to do some extra damage there to the face. It doesn't look like we have any instant death, unfortunately. So this fight's going to be a little bit slower because of that. Instant death will take care of the long arm here on tier 1 and tools on tier 2.
See, this is the power of that cursed ring that we saw somebody using in the last run.
Yeah, so that was in the classroom chest next to the monster in a box. So if you went and got that, you had access to instant death. I will always buy a cursed ring if I see it. It's normally like $1,000, and you never know if you're going to get instant death or not. And it helps out so much with this final fight because it takes care of 2 of the parts that you have to beat.
Yeah, and we saw Gogo getting petrified. So Hash probably pretty happy to pick up those softs earlier.
That delicious pickled soft coming in handy.
We're definitely seeing a bit more of what this tier is capable of. Other than just hitting you with stuff that you can normally avoid with Phantom or Fenrir, the head can do some pretty annoying things like reverse polarity, switching everyone's front and back position, or petrifying you. It can be plenty annoying, especially if you can't just instantly kill that left arm.
Yeah,
speed things up.
One of the worst things about R polarity is if you have queued up your party with Phantom, that R polarity is basically an AoE spell for your team. So it will get rid of that vanish status on your entire team, and it doesn't do any damage. It just is doubly annoying.
Yeah,
and
luckily the party positions reset in the next tier, so if you don't need to switch them back. We've got a mute coming out. Can you mute first phase?
No. The only thing in the first phase that actually casts spells is the face, right? It'll cast Dread, as you saw with the stone and the R polarity. So it doesn't really, even if you did mute it, it won't really do very much there. And one of the reasons why it does R polarity is to smack someone like Sabin and knock them out, because Pearl Earring has now got to go and heal his party. And the worst part is just wasting a turn re-rowing your entire party, because now that's now just one phase of attack you can't do. Mang getting that bum rush off on the top part, and is going to use the multi-summon for Odin here to try and get rid of that long arm. X-Zone does hit for Pearl Earring. And Hash is finally done with the first tier and on to the second. Overswarm casting Float on his team to make sure that he does not face the wrath of that death counter, Quake.
Yeah, we've got everybody here doing pretty different things getting through tier 1. Your floats, your Fenrirs, your Sword Tech 7 Stragos, your Air Blades. But Hash still the first getting to tier 2.
Yeah, we also have Edgar with Throw in here in case we picked up some water edges for that balled up fist. We'll make that part of the fight better. And there you see the Quake death counter for Overswarm. So nice heads up play there to use that float. And they are on to tier number 2, where Hashmalum has already muted magic, but without anything to deal with tools. We're still going to see the Wrath of Tools. Stunner is an interesting one on tier 2 because you can actually stop hit. Not that that really does much, because hit doesn't really do anything until he dies. And then when he dies, he's going to do his death counter regardless. So I usually tell people don't even bother casting stop on hit. But Stunner has a chance to cast stop on anything it hits. So we'll see if that does any effect. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did surprisingly high damage too. Yeah, that was like 5k each.
Yeah, so Stunner does not split its damage among targets, so it will do full damage to everything. So whether you have 1 enemy on the screen or 4, it'll do 5k for Strago, it'll do 2400-ish for Gogo. That's one of the other nice things about Stunner, is it's a very good AoE, because unlike most spells in the game that do split damage with multiple targets, Sword Tech 6 will not.
It can be a bit risky doing that spread damage on this tier. I mean, we see Tiger down already, but if you're doing slightly lower split damage to everybody, instead of just targeting, you can get Tiger into his annoying low HP counter phase. But we've successfully made it through that, and we've got 10 hits going down.
Yep, everybody now on tier 2, as the Ice Rod's here basically just cleaning up for Hash. Mang de la Mang with Ice 3 taking out Tiger, because Tiger is weak to Ice, so good heads up play to use that there. We did see Pearl Earring summon Odin to take out Tools, and Overswarm is just going one by one here, very methodical. One of the worst parts of tier 2 is if you kill multiple things at the same time, like you mentioned. There is the quarter death counter from magic, and then the 10 hits death counter from hit. Particularly if you kill both of those things at the same time, they could be a lot of problems. But there's such a huge disparity in their HP totals. Magic, I think, is 41,000 and hit is 30, that you're normally not killing them both at the same time if you're doing AoE to everything on that tier.
Yeah, it tends to happen more with things like Atma offering or VK offering. But if you're just spamming those blue nukes, you usually don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, and Pearl Earring unfortunately has nothing to deal with magic, and magic is just wasting his time casting things like Mute on Strago. And we're on to tier number 3 here for Hashmalum, and it looks like Overswarm is going to be following up very shortly behind here, opening up with a W win, so he's going to have to heal up his party a little bit. Health is a cure 2 for the party, but Setzer's magic damage is so low that he only healed up his team for about 800.
And earlier you asked me who I would put the VK on, and that's why I would put it on Setzer.
Yeah, so Sword Tech 5 coming out here is a good source of non-elemental damage against Girl. Because unfortunately, I don't think Hashmalum has very much outside of Flare, maybe, and Pummel as a Blitz that can do damage that is non-elemental for his team. So has to resort to Sword Tech 6 to do that damage. Coming out with Fenrir here for the Calmness protection. And now is going to power through with Rods for the rest of this.
I can't help but notice that everybody here has kept their Sword Tech Strago chat.
Sword Tech 5 is extremely useful also on a magic caster to heal up your MP, not just your HP. So that's another reason why a Sword Tech Strago, although you might not be using 7, definitely 5 and sometimes 6 is really, really good.
Here comes the train cast.
Yeah, so let's see what's going to happen here. We've got the Ice Rod coming out. 8,200 damage, not enough. Thankfully, this is only a train counter and not a Meteo counter.
Yeah, train can be a bit more annoying than Meteo, but in this case, when you're just throwing rod after rod, you'd rather have the cool shades.
All right, so that's Hash on to final Kefka. So he's going to have to figure out a way to heal up his party. I don't know if he's one of the runners that bought a Mega Elixir, but Train will blind and mute your whole party, so he cannot use any spells unless he uses an Echo Screen, and not that he was using physical offense anyway, but you would be not able to do that here. So one of the annoying things about going from tier 3 to tier 4 with Kefka is the first turn you might have to spend healing or clearing status ailments, and the second turn you might have to spend healing. Glue lamenting that nobody put Umaro into the final party. We did get Umaro rather late with a lot of our runners already having established builds. And I'm going to be nice and just say that's the reason why.
Yeah. Still,
But
not happy to see it.
But sometimes, right, and he does have a Mega Elixir there to heal up after Fallen 1. Sometimes when you already know what your party comp is going to be, you don't want to alter it no matter what you see. Other times, like Pearl Earring, inserted that throw Edgar into his party very, very late. Here comes Meteo for Overswarm, and oh my goodness, it hits everybody. I think he mistimed that Phantom cast, unfortunately. And it's going to cost him his Calmness protection. Valiant Knife sets are also going down. Oh no, but he gets back up with life 3. My heart. Oh my goodness. And there goes Strago. But Strago's getting back up again.
Unfortunately, we did not get to see the tragedy of your life 3'd person getting double Calmness.
Is Chumbawamba playing in the background somewhere? We get back up again. And here is Hash continuing to spam those rods as Overswarm is coming up to final Kefka. This is going to be interesting. So, Overswarm does have that offering Valiant Knife user in Setzer, so he's going to have way more damage than what Hash has here. So there's a chance for Overswarm to catch up. Meanwhile, Mang de Lamang and Pearl Earring both on tier 3 here, dealing with some W wins. And look at that Strago. Wow, Sortech 7 is doing about 11,000 for him here. Unfortunately, that is not enough to kill Sleep, but he's under 10,000 HP now. And out comes Meteo. Is Gogo going to survive? No, they will not. Goner coming from Hash here, and he's still yeeting Ice Rods.
Yeah, it looks like Mang is just going to forego Gogo for the final phase. Just get through this. Don't try to waste a bunch of time bringing people back from the dead.
Yeah, when you have 3 of your 4 characters going into Kefka, you're usually pretty good, especially with Shadow, who's got Bum Rush doing quad 9s. That's a really good member of your team to have. Out comes Goner here for Hashmalum. He's going to need to heal up his party. Sortech 5 is a way that you could heal your party here, or you could heal your Blitz user, and they could use Mantra to spread the love, as it were. Mantra actually, curiously enough, will also clear both Blind and Mute. So if you are stuck after getting trained, if you use Mantra on your Blitz user, your other 3 characters will have those status ailments cleared if you use Mantra.
Yeah, I basically know 4 Blitzes off the top of my head, and it's Suplex, Aura Bolt, Mantra. Oh, and we get another train coming out. So prep those readies again, Hash.
Boy. Fallen 1 here from Pearl Earring, going through with the Sortech 7 here from Strago. We got Overswarm with his 1 HP on Setzer, but Setzer's also blind, but that doesn't matter with an offering and a Valiant Knife. Out comes the Goner charge for Kefka here on both Hash and Overswarm. We have 4 Kefkas on screen at the same time. I don't know where to look.
Yeah, and I think Hash was waiting, didn't want to risk an Ultima counter at those low HPs, so we were just waiting until the Goner came out.
All right, so we have
there's
a
Crack
Boom
Pal.
Crack Pal, both Overswarm and Hashmalum, although it didn't look like it here on the stream because it wasn't exact. Their times are both 1:26:56, so they finished within 1 second of one another, so not exact, but within 1 second. And we've got Mang de Lamang here trying to steal a Mega Elixir, and oh no, procs an Ultima counter. Oh boy. Can he survive this? Oh boy. He already has Cure queued up at least, thank goodness.
Yeah, it can get
Yeah, go ahead.
it can get real spicy. Usually after that first Goner cast, if you haven't killed him, there's always that risk of him being in that Ultima counter range. which hits a lot harder than Goner.
Yeah, you have to be at least 2,400 HP to eat an Ultima, whereas Goner, it's around 15 to 1,600, I would think. Pearl Earring throws the Shuriken, and that is the dart that will do it. Same thing with Mang de la Mang here, also with the crack pow of Kefka. I think it's because I might have started some of these a little bit off from one another. Mang de la Mang's final time, 127.58. Pearl Earring, 128.08. So very nicely done from our runners here as we are checking the race room at the end there. Very nicely done. Oh my goodness, what wonderful action we've had for tonight's Worlds Collide event. This has been a lot of fun watching back some of these runs, because this is one of those seeds as you do see a true knight for offering here in the Coliseum. So that was one way to get an offering if you didn't find it on a dragon. So yeah, we had a lot of different ways actually to go through the seed, which is pretty wild, because normally that's not the case. But in this particular seed, we had so many characters with so many different checks that you can do it.
Yeah, you don't usually get that much variety out of 8 runs in the same seed, but everybody did something a little bit different. We even saw some people who managed to have a normal amount of espers and characters for a while.
Yeah, it was not nearly as lopsided. Although, if you faded Zone Eater and if you faded Kefka at Norsh, which most people do until they get Nog, which happened to be at Zone Eater, you kind of got what Hashmalum got in that particular last run we saw, where you had 7 espers before you got your 5th character, and then you had 9 characters before you got your 8th esper. So a bit of a wild ride there for us for sure.
Are you going to be doing another one of these for what we've got going on this week?
Maybe towards the end of the week. I've already penciled myself in for a few things here throughout the week. I don't anticipate we will be restreaming again on the Worlds Collide channel unless somebody else wants to take up the mantle. However, on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have our weekly speed gaming slot. So if 2 or more racers want to do their Flashback Battle Royale seed for week 2, the Coliseum Grand Finals will be on one of the speed gaming family of networks at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Otherwise, it could be a showcase of next week's flag set or a practice of this week's. So we'll see what happens when we get there. We're flexible. But I certainly had a lot of fun. And I want to thank Drinks Glue and Gretham for doing the tracking behind the scenes. Thank you so much. We can't do what we do without the trackers keeping us in line and honest about what we're talking about.
Yeah, even when we're singing their praises, they still feel like the unsung heroes.
Yeah, the real MVPs. Along with my co-commentator Cirrus, thank you so much for joining me for commentary for not 1 but 2 races tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an honor to be held hostage with you during these comms.
Well, just don't talk about the payments, because then all the other commentators will start to get jealous, start hitting me up. What's your Cash App? We'll keep that on the DL.
Okay, it sounds good. But be careful. We are thinking about unionizing.
Fair
You
enough.
didn't hear it from me, but
Fair enough. I will have to look out for people crossing the picket lines and all that fun stuff. So thank you so much, chat, for sticking with us for not 1 but 2 races here, vodcasts of the first week of the Flashback Battle Royale. If everybody enjoyed it, maybe we'll do this more often. We'll maybe do it, every week that we have this Flashback Battle Royale. I also did upload a recap video on our official Worlds Collide YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go click on that if you want to kind of see what everybody did or what the runner that got in first place for this particular week did and how they managed to avoid all of the multi-part checks that were very long and somehow come out with 9 espers, which is kind of amazing. But But yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, staff. And we have any other thoughts here before we go?
I guess just real quick, if somebody sees this and they're interested, what's the best way for them to get started with Worlds Collide?
So we do have a website, ff6worldscollide.com, where you could roll your own seeds. On the link on the website is a link to our Discord if you're interested in doing that, where we can, talk about the game, help you learn if you're wanting to jump and dive in. We do have a mentor program where you can sign up for some live coaching, or if you recorded a video and you're not quite sure what you did wrong or how you got stuck, you could also do a VOD review. Even people like me do VOD reviews, right? I said it in one of the races that I did a VOD review of 1 week, and somebody was like, yeah, you just made the wrong decision in terms of routing, but everything else looked okay. And that comforted my soul, because I thought I was just bad at this game. And it turns out I'm only slightly bad at this game.
But we all need a VOD review sometimes, even the best of us.
Yeah, for sure. So ff6worldscollide.com is the website, and then there's also a link to the Discord where you can get involved with some of the cool things that we're doing around here. So thank you so much to the runners for volunteering their videos as well. I reached out to a few of them to ask them. So thank you for allowing us to feature you. And that's going to do it for us. We'll catch you on the next time. Peace out now, everybody.
Good night, everyone.